Well, there's Ellen. Hi.
Hi, Evan.
Welcome, everybody. So far, we have a little small crew today compared to usual, but I'm so excited about our guest today, Marina Galana, dear friend from Mexico,
Yeah.
Querétaro, Mexico. That's Querétaro, Mexico, for those who speak English. And I have known her for a while. I've been on her show, tried to speak a little Spanish on her podcast, but she luckily saved my life and translated for me because my Spanish isn't that great. But she is an old wise soul. She's not old, but she's very like an old wise soul. And when she speaks at conferences, it's just like you can hear a pin drop. There's something about her speaking pure truth. Plus, she's charismatic and she's a beautiful person. And she's on the board of 3PGC. She's also head of the Spanish, um, what do you call it, a division or a
Well,
Spanish?
it's a community. It's the three principles in Spanish community.
Yeah. And you're also involved with all of the other languages, right?
Yes, I am because together with Natasha Swertlov, we lead the committee of international communities within the 3PGC board. Yes, so we pretty much help people create the communities wherever they are or whatever
Yeah.
their interest is.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can talk a little bit about that later, but let me just introduce the podcast first, and I'd love to hear more about what you're doing with that. Um, so this is the podcast Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane. This is the last one we're doing in this format, where I'm interviewing uh, people on a monthly basis, and the stars of my book and stars of the Three Principles community who share from a really beautiful level. And starting in September, we're going to take a couple of months off, but starting in September, I'm going to be doing interviews with a panel of people, two or three people at a time, people who've read my book, Thriving in the Eye of the Hurricane, and have been impacted by it. So that you who've been here, Bob, Ellen, whoever have been impacted by this, can share your insights. Because it's in the sharing of your insights that you re-experience it. It's a wonderful thing to share your insights. As a speaker, I can tell you, I get more out of my talks than probably anybody listening. But the other thing is by sharing, you give so much to other people that triggers their insights and gives them hope and makes them curious. So I'm really looking forward to that. So if anybody listening to this call has a story, has something they want to share, Pete's already agreed to it. So I've got him on board. Um, but just let me know. Send me an email and with your insights, your story, what helped you, and we'll get you on the docket. So now I want to introduce Marina Galan, who, as I said, is joining us from Mexico. She's a dear friend, colleague, someone who's really helped expand the three principles globally. She has a vision that's really incredible to be inclusive to all languages, all cultures, all religions. And now we have, I don't know how many languages you can talk about that, how many um, communities there are around the world that are helping people. Um, and Marina, I just wanted to tell you, I've been invited to do a coaching program in Spain that will be all European students
Oh, wow.
doing it on the coast of southern Spain, starting in.
Congratulations. That is so exciting. You have to let me know.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I want to get Spanish lessons from you, so I'm not in the talk, but on the streets, restaurants, I need to get tuned back up.
Great.
So,
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Marina is a coach, a counselor, a mentor, a leader. She's really a leader, a kind of next generation leader there's the people who studied with Sid, and then there's the next generation, and she's definitely one of the zeitgeists of the three principles, and will go way beyond anything us old timers have done. So it's my delight to have you on the show today, the podcast, and to just maybe introduce yourself and talk a little bit about whatever comes from your heart to talk about.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I did not know it was the last episode you were doing as an interview. I feel very honored.
I had to get you in.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It seems to me that the three principles are in such a pivotal point right now in the world, in history. Like Joe was mentioning, there's the first generation, the people that studied with Sid, who were incredibly lucky to have that opportunity. And now there is inevitably a new generation coming forward as that generation starts to fade. I consider myself incredibly blessed to be part of that generation as well. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were discussing the fortune of not having met Sid. And I know it sounds a little bit controversial, but oh my God, we've gotten so much out of so many teachers, so many flavors, so many different perspectives that have enriched our own perspective and have given just so much light to that diversity that you were talking about, Joe. So we, by not having met Sid, we got to not focus on just one point, one idea, one perspective, one thing. And we really just came at it completely open, completely wide, understanding that there is a source, there is a starting point, and it is important to look in that direction. But at the same time, recognizing the richness of the different points of view that it is all bringing. And talking about the pivotal moment that the understanding is going through, like it really seems that it has gone global. I mean, it's not something anyone in particular did or accomplished. It just has gone global. And you have all these people in every single corner of the world getting really interesting, having transformed their lives and being interested in sharing the message beyond themselves and creating communities around them. And in a way, it seems like it is such an incredible opportunity to really create a global community, to really give it not only sense going forward, but respect that origin looking backwards and allow that force and that power to come from there going forward. So it surprises me a little bit to hear you say leader. But honestly, if I stop and think about it for a second, it's like, oh, I guess so. I guess so. There is such a beautiful and at the same time miraculous commitment to sharing the good news, to allowing people to understand themselves and access arena resources in a most beautiful, graceful, natural way. I mean, why not, right? What else could be more important than that? It just moves you forward. It just moves you forward. It's not a decision. And I see it playing out in so many ways. In so many ways. I have heard over and over again how Sid's greatest dream was to see this go out into the world. But because it is such an organic understanding, because it can only go from mouth to mouth to mouth, because it cannot become, a body of knowledge that you can just share intellectually, it seems to me that the way it will go out into the world is precisely through these tiny little communities popping, emerging in different places where people can really meet and understand from an experiential sense what it is that we are talking about. And yes, it is happening. We just have to ride the wave and make the most out of it and allow it to happen, bringing our own flavors, our own possibilities forward with it. I just feel incredibly blessed to be part of that one wave. That's what I would say about myself. Other than that, yes, I live in Querétaro, Mexico. I have 3 amazing sons. One of them is 17, the second one is 14, and the third one is 13. They blow my mind every single week with something completely unexpected. And I was talking to one of them recently, and he was saying, I can't remember how our life was before the principles. Can you please remind me so I can get a sense of but I cannot imagine what their lives would be like, what their possibilities would be like if we had not come across this understanding. Because I do remember life before the principles. I do remember motherhood before the principles. And oh my God, it was a horrible, horrible thing that I would not wish on anyone, let alone my kids. But now, I mean, you really see how this understanding not only allows you to overcome the difficulties and the trauma and the hurt and the suffering, but it takes you way beyond it. It really allows you to reach the full potential as it is becoming present, as it is. I don't know why the words that come to mind is being granted, but I guess it is being granted. And yes, I work with 3PGC board. I am one of the leaders of the Spanish-speaking community, and I also have a private practice and some sort of an academy preparing people to share this understanding in Spanish going forward. Because we all know we can't do it alone, don't we? So we kind of know that we have to pay it forward, and the best way to pay it forward is preparing others to share it forward. That's it. That's what I have to say about me today. It's more than enough.
So, can I ask you something?
Please, I hope you will.
So, what is your dream? What is your dream when you, and I don't mean a vision or goals or anything like that. I just mean, what is the dream you see when you have an insight and realize the power of this understanding of principles? What dream does that? How does this make a difference in the world? Because in this world, I just keep getting clicks on my phone about the latest political scandal or the gas prices or what's going on in Ukraine. I know you've been aren't you doing some work with people in Ukraine as well? So
Yep.
I'd like you to give some examples, but also I'd love to hear your vision because you have such a big vision. It just blows my mind every time I listen to you talk about it.
Because I don't want to keep it small, Joe. I mean, if we're gonna dream, let's go all the way, right? If we're gonna dream, let's go all the way. Why keep it small? Why say, oh, I want to reach all the Spanish-speaking people in the world and not, I want to reach everyone in the world. I want this to reach every single person out there. Everyone, all of them, all of them, no exceptions. Yes, all ages, all races, all religions, everybody. Now, what would that world look like? I have no idea, but oh my God, am I curious? Am I willing to see? You see? I don't know what would have happened to oil prices and what would happen to armed conflict, but I know it would look different. I know it would look different. I don't consider that I have the capacity to imagine it, but I have a deep knowing that it would look not only different, but better. I remember having an incredible conversation with a Baha'i master once, many years ago. And he told me that in the Baha'i faith, the coming together of humanity in peace and understanding is not only desirable, it is inevitable. And when he was saying it, I started observing his community. And what I saw was that if you consider it inevitable, your demeanor changes, the way you inhabit life changes. If you consider it possible, the way you inhabit life changes. If you don't consider it possible, the way you inhabit life changes. So again, if you dream this big, you will inhabit life in a certain way. If you dream this big, you will inhabit life in a completely different way. Completely different way. Last week in the conference, I heard someone say that Sid also referred to it as a done deal. It's the first time I've heard that. I hadn't heard that before. But I loved it. It was like, oh my God, here we go. It's a done deal. You know, it's like, there is no way this cannot not happen. And knowing that at a deep level transforms the way you inhabit life. I am a firm believer in the fact that most of the time it is not our job to figure out how or when. Our only job is to say yes. And thank you. And so the whole world, yes, all of it, everybody, yes. How? I don't know. That's not up to me. That's up to life. But that's the game I want to play. The game I want to play, what I am up to, is every person in the world. The little that I see is that on a personal level, on a family level, on a couple level, on a community level, the changes and the transformation are so relevant, so big, so positive, that if you scale that, the reverberation of it, there is no way of saying where it will go. But if you cannot affect a part of the whole without affecting the whole, every single person that gets transformed and gets opened and expanded by this is affecting the whole universe and is, in fact, growing exponentially the possibilities of it happening.
Can I interject something here?
It's, of course.
I remember when I first met Sid, and this was 40 years ago, or 41 years ago, he said that right after his enlightenment experience, he knew what you just said. He knew that this would completely transform the world, that this would go out, and that it was a done deal, that there was no stopping it. Even though he was the only person that had had this particular insight about the principles, that vision was so big, and he would talk about this, and I, as a young psychologist, would listen to him. I go, wow, this guy's either really crazy, really enlightened, one of the two, because it sounded really grandiose. But then he further said that it only happens one person at a time. It's through you, and he would say, Joe, get this for yourself, because it's in you realizing it yourself that you can't help but pass it on to others. But if you try to pass it on to others before you've gotten it for yourself, you'll just create another lost concept of the principles. So it's a living, breathing thing that transforms and spreads the word and expands the consciousness of humanity. But it's the way you relate to your children, the way you relate to your neighbors, the way, not the talk, maybe you give at a conference, but the way you interact with people on the side. They're touched by how you show up. There's something invisible that is at work here, something very spiritual. So I just wanted to kind of underline what you said there.
But at the same time, you were saying in your introduction that as you share, you understand it at a deeper level. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. So it's the ever-giving gift, because you have to get it for yourself before you can give it away. But as you give it away, you get it for yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So it just
that you receive the same thing. Yeah.
It just keeps growing. It just keeps growing. And so, yes, it has to be organically. It has to be one person at a time. It has to be slowly, but it is still inevitable. And what you say is true, Joe. The way you interact with someone, the way you interact with your kids, but oh my God, the way you interact with yourself. The way you interact with yourself impacts the whole universe.
Wow.
And we are incredibly focused on how we interact with others, how we interact with nature, how we interact with But we seem to be blind to the fact that how we interact with ourselves affects the whole universe. How we talk to ourselves, how we understand ourselves in this game of life.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone else say that. That's beautiful.
Earlier this year, I started a program on self-love. It was called First of All and Finally, because it takes us a while to get there. It takes us a while to get there, but once we do, we cannot but recognize that it is first of all. It is the first step. It is the first of all. And man, I learned so much in the months prior to that program, reflecting on it, reflecting on self-love and what it was about and how do we go about it and why would it be important or why would it be relevant? But then over those weeks with the participants, the things we saw, the insights we had were just mind-blowing. And I really saw deeply that the relationship with ourselves impacts the relationship with everything, with everyone, with life itself. And we are so careful of working in our relationships with our partners and with our kids and with our friends and with our colleagues. But we rarely take time to look at the relationship that we have with ourselves and actually understand that there are things we can do about it. So you see, you never really know what it's going to look like. You never really know what it's going to look like, but if you are willing. I heard someone say the other day that there's a difference between will and willingness, and I love that. But if you are willing to be touched, if you are willing to be open, if you are willing to be impacted, if you are willing to be vulnerable, if you are willing to see, because the conversation, the nature of life is conversational. The conversation is ongoing. It must happen. If you are willing to see, you will see. If you are willing to hear, you will hear. And so we go back to the paradox where there's really nothing for us to do, but there's willingness to happen in us. There's willingness to happen in us. And that willingness impacts the universe. It changes the game. So again, all I can do is say yes. Again and again and again. And every day I get to say yes again. And it's incredibly exciting. Because that's it. You don't know what it's going to look like, but you get to say yes. You get to participate. You get to collaborate in this mystery.
Thank you. Marina, could you share? I've just been curious about, to bring it to another dimension here, practical. You know, the war in Ukraine has been on all of our minds, and the suffering there, and the physical challenges, and the rippling effect of that all over the world. And didn't you do some work with people who were refugees or who've been in that war, and
Yeah.
teaching or offering the principles? Can you share a little bit of that? I'm personally curious about it because I don't know what you've done, but I'm sure others might be curious as well.
Sure. Okay. So this happened in the most random, weirdest way possible, of course, right? I was invited to be part of a 3-day live training. Originally, it was going to happen in Dominican Republic, and then in the last minute, it was changed, and they moved it to Turkey.
Oh, that's quite a change.
I know, right? It was like, okay, whatever. But the guy that was organizing that retreat is from Ukraine, but lives in Canada. He has been living in Canada for quite some time, but he has a huge community in Russia and Ukraine. And so for whatever reason, he chose to hire me and another coach from Russia to co-teach with him this retreat.
Really?
The retreat was on business creation and product innovation and, very, very practical. But the political climate was getting tense, and things were getting difficult. And every week I would call him and say, are we going through with this? Yes, we are going through with this. We are not very impressed. And so in the end, the war exploded 2 days before I would fly to Turkey. And I called him and I said, are we doing this? And he said, yes, I am already here. No, come. So again, yes, here we go. Yes. And off I go to Turkey. Now, we have 80 people in the room, plus the people that are both in Ukraine and Russia that could not fly out because the war had already started. Yes. So we have virtual people in Ukraine, in Russia, 80 people in the room. The coach from Russia was not able to travel, so he had to stay in St. Petersburg. He was live, hybrid, he was online. Now, imagine me in a room full of Ukrainians, Russians, a Ukrainian coach, a Russian coach, and a girl from Mexico. Like, what the hell am I doing there? It doesn't make any sense, right? And I am looking up and saying, oh my God, please. I mean, what the hell am I doing here? This doesn't make any sense at all. I have no way of talking about what is going on to these people. But okay, yes, and thank you. Here I am, of service. And I talked to the person organizing the event, and I tell him, you're changing about the retreat, right? We're not going to talk about business creation and product innovation. And he says, oh, no, we are going forward with the program as it is. And I'm like, we are? Oh my God. Okay. So he goes on with the program. And it was the weirdest thing, because we would talk about business and product and innovation. But of course, I was bringing the understanding, the point of view of the principles to the whole thing. And so somehow talking from that point of view started making sense to people, and they started taking it to whatever was occupying their minds. And so in every break, we would get live updates, like, oh, my son just made it to the border and was able to cross. Oh, my parents haven't made it to the border. They had to spend the night in some shed in the countryside and Oh, my daughter just, so it was very, very impactful. Everything was just so raw. Yes. Of course, after a day, we needed to change the subject and we needed to talk about the elephant in the room. And we started talking about everything that was happening and how they could best use their inner resources to deal with it. And so out of that conversation, the people that were there that had their own communities, both in Ukraine, Russia, and other Russian-speaking countries, they came over and they started asking me, how do I talk to my community about this that would be relevant if they are under attack, if they are fleeing the country, if they are being judged by their families and their loved ones, and so we had incredible conversations, and they realized that they were lacking the language. They were lacking the language of war. And it was not that they were lacking the language, but because the people that were under attack or, immersed in the circumstances did not feel like the people that were in Turkey could understand what they were going through. They felt that the language was missing. And so we organized a reunion, and on the reunion with people that have worked in the military, that are versed in the principles, that work with veterans, etc., so that they could bridge that language gap and explain to them how to talk to people. And then out of that group, a couple of people came forward, and when they went back to their countries, they were not physically in Ukraine and Russia, they were in Poland, but they were receiving refugees and organizing refugee camps and all this. So they asked to have a program in which all the refugees could participate and could get an understanding of principles to help them deal mentally with what was happening. Now, here's the thing, Joe. We thought we would get, I don't know, 50 people, like the people that these two girls were in touch with. But they started advertising it or talking about it in a social media that is called Telegram or something that was active in Russia because all the others had closed down. And within 4 days, we had over 500 people sign up.
Wow.
And so we didn't have the resources online to deal with that. So I went to the 3PGC and asked, to use their Zoom. And so the board got involved and all this. And then in the end, we were able to get this program, this 5-day program, 10-hour program, live with over 500 refugees in 12 different Russian-speaking countries, being translated live right there, right then. And people were allowed to ask questions. And it was incredibly powerful because we knew we were talking to people who were immersed in the most dire circumstances. And we all we had was wisdom in the moment to talk to them. And we had amazing results. We had amazing feedback. And out of that, now a program has been created to train people in those 12 Russian countries to teach the principles, to deepen their understanding of the principles and teach other people in those 12 Russian-speaking countries on one side. And on the other side, the 3PGC has committed to creating a set of resources where the principles can be understood in incredibly dire, difficult times. So in times of war, in times of attack, in times of, and we are working on it. We are working on creating those resources so that they are readily available whenever conflict arises, wherever conflict arises, for people to get to them. And just more and more keeps coming out of that one yes of, oh my God, the Mexican girl, what am I doing here? But that just goes to show you just have to say yes. It doesn't have to make sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to make sense to your intellect. It's just the willingness. And then the collaboration of the universe happens. I mean, if I had in my mind thought, there's a war about to explode in Ukraine. I wonder what I could do about it. What if I could? That would have never happened. You see, that would have never happened. You just allow yourself to be guided that way. And it's funny how by allowing yourself to be guided by life that way, you lead.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the kind of questions that we would get, they would just stop you on your tracks. They would just leave your mind blank. There was no way you could even imagine the horrors they were going through. And it was so humbling and revealing to see that even in those unimaginable examples that we were getting live in the program, the understanding was not, I wouldn't even say still relevant. It was incredibly relevant. It was particularly relevant. So it was humbling. It was empowering. It was revealing. It was, oh my God. Oh my God, this is it. This points to the heart of the matter. This points to the core of what being human is all about, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the hurricane. Yes?
Could you give us an example or a story about maybe one particular person that comes to your mind and how it was relevant and how it impacted them?
Well, I think that there were a lot of stories regarding hate and why, as tempting as it was not useful. There was one girl, and she asked to speak, and what she shared was, what she said was, I don't know how to deal with, when I leave the basement where I am, the refuge where I am, to try to find food, and I go out in the streets and I see the bodies of dead women lined up in the street, and the Russian tanks purposefully riding over them, crushing the bodies. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how to integrate that into my life. I don't know how to go back to the refuge and tell this to people. I don't know how not to hate the men driving the tanks. So that story, like many, many, many others that we had the privilege to hear, it all boiled down, for me, at least for me, it all boiled down to a couple of things. And those couple of things were, we are always doing the best we can at any given moment, right? So what that translated for me in those examples was, we will always choose the best option that we see. If hate looks like a good option, if anger looks like a good option, if revenge looks like a good option, then that is what you will see. But if you understand the mechanics of the mind, if you get to understand how it all works, you see that that hate, that urge for revenge, that anger is precisely telling you that there is a better option, that there is another option, that you can disregard this one. And people understanding that tiny difference, oh, this is letting me know that there is a better option. I can look for that one. I can open myself up to a different option, to a better option. Not only regarding the world going forward, and so not hate, not revenge, not judgment, not but practically in the here and now. Because right here and right now, having a clear mind, free of all that, is what will allow me to access the resources that I need to deal with this situation. So it was not a matter of, oh yes, Shanti Shanti, let's create a world of peace, Dalai Dalai. No, it was a matter of them realizing that if they were able to go past that, they would find themselves in a better state of mind to deal with the horrible circumstances. Right here, right now. And so seeing that hate and anger and revenge were not useful to deal with the circumstances allowed them to let them go. Let them go and not try to hold on to that because justice and it's what they deserve. And no. For me, in order to deal with this now in the optimal way, a good idea would be to let go of all this. Later, if you want to go back to it, we can discuss that. But right now, for you to deal with this, it seems to me, Joe, that there is a lot of social value given to a bad state of mind. Just like we equate worry with love, we can equate hate with justice. And that really confuses us, especially when we are in dire circumstances. So seeing that there really is no value for it in the present circumstances allows them to see a better option. And that is what it kept boiling down to. Is that making sense?
I never thought about it that way. That is just so amazing and beautiful. Wow. I've often wondered, what would I say to people in Ukraine about this situation, or people going through this or similar situations? That just seemed like high math to me.
Well, it seemed like very high math to me too, believe me.
but in the moment, that's what came to you. Because, and I think that for me is the lesson here, that whatever you're given in life, you always are enough. And you will always have the next thought, the next insight that you need to deal with it. Whether it's giving a talk to an adolescent, or dealing with your kids, or talking to a group of refugees from Ukraine in the midst of war with horrors happening around them. It's no different. That whole, I got a lot out of this. I got my money's worth out of this session already.
Good. I'm glad.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad I asked that, because I was so curious. I just heard little rumors of this. I didn't know exactly how it all happened. And what you did with that opportunity when you said yes to that opportunity. Wow. So where is it at now? What's happening now?
So now, as I was saying, the woman that was the interpreter, both in the program in Turkey, during the program with the refugees, and even before, as I had worked with communities over there, is the one leading the whole program that will now bring 3Principles teachers. Anyone here can sign up for it, please. We'll bring 3Principles teachers to help them prepare to teach the principles in their own communities in these 12 countries. So it's not a certification program per se, but it's a program to teach them how to teach, to ground them enough so they can teach, so they can share, because that is what we see as most important right now. That getting it out there, because they are going through so much. The people in Russia are going through horrible examples of hate and judgment towards them, and they are being shunned and shut out from their own family members and friends outside of Russia. They are being subject of horrible judgment, regardless of whether they agree or do not agree with the war. And the Russians that live in all these countries are being horribly treated as well. You see what I mean? So it's not only the refugees that are coming out of Ukraine. There are so many different stories playing out that the principles can really help with. And so we are not leaving anyone out. There is people from Russia and 12 Russian-speaking countries. There are refugees, there are non-refugees, there's everything. We are just, the way people responded to this was so unbelievable that we really saw, well, clearly there is a need for this. And what do you do when you see a need for it? Yes. Okay. Even if I feel incompetent, even if it feels way above my pay grade. Okay, sure, let's do it. So we are going forward with this program. She is leading it, Masha Lyashenko, she's leading it. A lot of people signed up already from both the 3PGC board and people that were at the conference, etc. And we don't know where that will lead to next. But we're working hard to ground people enough to share this in their communities in any way that makes sense to them to share it. So that is regarding that group. And again, on 3PGC, we are creating resources for conflict so that they are readily available whenever they are needed.
Well,
But
anything
if you have more ideas, let me know.
I'm happy to help any way I can.
Thank you, Joe. I think it would be awesome. Thanks.
Ellen has her hand up. She has
She does.
a question or a comment or an insight or something. Let's see what it is.
Lots. Well, thank you. Just thank you so much. That was so beautiful, Marina. And so where can we get more information about this group? And I actually have a relative in Moscow. And yeah, and we've been in conversation. And, you know, the thing that strikes me is the expectation.
What do you mean?
Of stress, of course, like there's no there's no other option but a stress response. That, you know, that's just really powerful for me, that there's no other option. So where can I get more information to send to her?
Yeah, I will write down in the chat
Okay.
where you can get in contact with Masha, who is the one leading
Okay.
the whole
My
program.
my cousin's name is Masha too, of course. So
There you go. Perfect. And now Masha, she's from Ukraine, is coming together with another person in Russia. Well, she also lives in Poland, but she's from Russia, and they are coming together from Ukraine and Russia to create a Russian-speaking community for 3PGC. So soon the access will be easier, more evident.
Sid would be very, very happy to hear this.
And I also have a question about community creation.
Yes.
So I love all that you're doing around the world for community creation. And I started a community in Phoenix when I was living in Phoenix, and I was blessed to have Bill and or Linda Pettit live for some of the gatherings. And oftentimes when they weren't there, the conversation went to kind of comparing different teachings or seeing how someone else's teaching was, you know, there was a lot of people bringing in other teachings. And I've since moved to Colorado, and I'm about to start a group here. And I know I'm not in the same place as when I started, and I have a lot more openness, awareness, and I know the group has its own life that I get to witness and see. Yet I'm wondering if you have any, experience in this creating groups when people want to bring in their teachings to the group.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things that I can say about that, but it's a really important point, And that is precisely why it seemed important, because there are groups popping up everywhere. That is why it seemed really important for the 3PGC to find the one group that was sticking to the teaching, not mixing it, not, do you see what I mean? So that if people anywhere wanted a taste or wanted some guidance in regards to, okay, but what is the source of it all? They would be able to find it and not just get, confused with whatever other teaching was being present in their community or in their area. And so that is precisely why the 3PGC recognizing, oh, okay, this group is aligned with the original message, if you want to see it that way. No, it's not being mixed with anything else. And this one, and this one, and this one. And we are being incredibly careful to only present the communities or accept the communities or sponsor, if you wish, the communities that are keeping it simple, that are keeping it real. On a very, 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 very personal level, to me, when people want to mix this with other teachings, other understandings, and again, this is me talking, it points to a lack of grounding, to a lack of understanding. Because, and I'm going to try to say this as simple as I can, because the essence of the 3 principles places enormous importance in your own personal inner guidance.
Mhm.
And so if they mix it with something else, it's okay, yes, your inner guidance plus this. You see what I mean? So all you need is your inner guidance and something else. And so
But as a host and facilitator and creator of this group, I want to be welcoming of people being there,
Yeah.
but not, and be, I guess I'll just be guided. I guess I just have to trust that I'll be guided how to stay, how to, I don't want to say not let other people,
But you see, you don't have to dismiss what they are bringing. You can respect it completely by acknowledging, oh, that's the way you were guided. Beautiful.
okay.
But
Okay.
that's the way you were guided.
Okay. That's it.
And-
That was the missing little piece for me, because there can be a tendency to get in my wrong mind about it rather
Exactly.
than, yes. Oh, yes. That's
But
what that teaching says. That's what that teaching says. That's how you see it. Yes.
So that's the way you are being informed right now. That's the way wisdom is informing you right now.
Okay.
It can change, right? So at any given moment, wisdom might say, I don't know, meditate or do breath work or do nothing, or just take long walks in the forest, or do Tai Chi or do yoga or do everything. But again, the beauty of the principles is that it allows for that inner guidance to be present without dismissing any of it, but recognizing that those might be just temporary and they are not pointing to principles. You see, principles are principles 24/7. Da, 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 da. So the way you are being informed is temporary in the form again, and the formless informs the form.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we are pointing to the formless, not the form. We are pointing beyond.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Does that make sense, Helen? Yes?
Yeah, thank you. Very helpful. And I will find you if I need some more support or guidance on that.
Yes, please find us.
I love that answer as well. That was because I think there's been a tendency, a lot of when people try to mix it, to get judgmental of it.
Yep.
Or put the person down, or oh, you're all wrong. And the way you talked about it there, that is so beautiful, because it's acknowledging where it's coming from.
Exactly.
Where every technique, everything came from the same source
Exactly.
of insight. But then
Yes.
turning it into a thing to do, that's where it goes astray, because as soon as you do something out as a ritual or a technique, you're not connected to the juice. You're not really, it's not coming from inspiration in the moment. It's not coming from that universal intelligence. So it's like the husk of the seed rather than the seed.
Exactly.
The covering rather than the essence, and that's what Sid was always talking about, was pointing people back to the essence. Don't create a religion here. Don't create a psychology or anything, really. Just, this is just how it works. And that's
Exactly. So there's a warning almost. No, do not pretend that wisdom will inform others the same way it informed you.
yeah.
So
Yes.
as soon as you try to impose the way you were informed, it's all misguided. Because again, like Joe says, you're not pointing to the source anymore.
Wisdom couldn't inform anyone else the way wisdom informed me. It's not possible.
Exactly. There you go. Perfect. Good, Ellen. I'm glad that made sense.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Joe, for this session today.
My pleasure. Really, I learned so much. This has been incredible. I don't know how we're doing on time here. Oh, we're already over time. Oh my God. James, can you just unmute everybody? And if anybody wants to say anything to Marina, thank you. Thumbs up, a yes, whatever comes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marina. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really great.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Really.
Well, and thank all of you who participated for being here. Thank you so much. Really. And spread the word. Anybody who's interested in volunteering to be on one of my panels to share what you're seeing and what helped you, I'd love for you.
Yes.